lighting isn't just about brightness. Woo, it's about the sound coming from that monitoring source over there. Light's not just about
Welcome in.
Light's not just about brightness. It's about control, and more importantly, it's about intentionality. What you're trying to convey with that lighting. This is Geared Up. I'm Chris Fain. It's our weekly live broadcast here at Profoto, where we talk about lighting, we do breakdowns and setups, and we kind of move through things and talk about lighting techniques. Today we're focusing on fill light. And the reason that we're talking about fill light is because, going back to what I just said about your intentionality, fill light helps you fulfill that. It helps you get the light feeling the way that you're wanting to. So your fill light is going to dictate whether your photo feels moody and contrasty and dramatic, or if it feels light and airy and natural. Fill light plays a huge portion of that. So fill light's job is to control the contrast of an image. It should be able to raise the contrast or lower the contrast depending on how much you give it or how much you take away, but it should never overpower your key light. It should never create another source. A fill light should never feel like there's another light coming into the scene to light your subject. You want the key light to do its thing and the fill light just to, again, raise or lower that contrast depending on what it is that you're trying to convey with your photograph. That being said, there are also things that you should make sure you're paying attention to and not to do when you're trying to fulfill that fulfill the fill light, essentially. So when you're trying to get that look you're going for, you want to keep a couple things in mind. So let's first talk about what are good options for using fill light, and then let's also talk about some things you should stay away from. And then we're going to take some photos showing you kind of going through the range of like one-to-one fill, and then bringing it down and making it more darker and dramatic. So there are three, in my brain, there are three types of fill. There is your ambient light, there is reflected light, and then there is light that you bring into the scene itself. So a secondary light source. So let's talk about your ambient fill. So it could be your room fill, it could be, all the lights that we have on here. You could be shooting outside. It could be the, just the ambient light all around. You can use that as a fill in and of itself. A lot of times, especially if you're using a flash with that, you can control that with your shutter speed. You can bring your shutter speed down, slow it down a little bit, and then you can start bringing in more of that ambient light, making it feel a little bit more natural. If you want it to feel a little bit darker, you could speed that shutter speed up, and you could really push the ambient light down. This is where things like high-speed sync are really, really effective for something like this. What they're made for is so that you can maintain, wide open apertures while shooting super fast shutter speeds. So you can speed that shutter speed up really, really fast and crush that ambient light, giving you more of a dramatic feel. Then you can use something like a reflector. So I have this little small guy here. This is our medium-sized reflector. Really, really handy thing to have. It comes, it's usually dual-sided. One side's always white, and the other side always has some sort of a finish, like a silver, sun silver, gold, black, if you want something that can actually subtract. Reflectors are really, really useful in a couple of different ways. One, they're really affordable. So to have something like this, it folds up really, really tiny. Oh, and then I just snapped mine because I twisted it weird. It's so good. I twisted it weird. It'll be fine. I'll just fix it. It's live, baby. We messed it up. I meant to do the taco method, and then I just twisted it. So, but the nice thing about going with the reflector like this is, one, they're very, very affordable, especially if you are an nincompoop and you snap yours like I just snapped mine. They're really affordable. They're really accessible because you don't really have to know too much other than get it closer for more fill, pull it away for less fill. The downside to a reflector is, depending on how you have your scene framed, you're going to run into an issue with proximity if you're trying to get your reflector to fill in more. So if you're trying to decrease that contrast a lot, you're going to have to get that reflector closer and closer and closer to your subject. The problem is, if you're shooting wider, maybe you're shooting some full body stuff, there's going to be a limit as to how far you can push that reflector in. So it has its limiting factors. So something to keep in mind if the reflector route is the way that you're going to go with using it as your fill light. The more powerful method is actually having a secondary light that you can use. Again, if you're outside in the ambient, the ambient light is super powerful. Use that. That's whenever I'm shooting on location. It's one light, ambient light's my fill. That's how I'm rocking. When you're in a studio situation, reflectors, V-flats, all that stuff is great, but again, you're gonna run into that proximity issue. Whereas something like a secondary light source, you have the ability to power it up, power it down, depending on how much fill you actually need. And then you can use modifier selection to give you the look that you want with that. So you have a lot more ability to craft and shape that light than you would. Some rules that I like to keep in mind when you're choosing to go that route with your fill. Your fill light should always be bigger than your key light. Again, we don't want it to look like we're introducing a second light source into the shot. The fill light's purpose is strictly to raise or lower the contrast, essentially just to control the contrast to whatever feel that you want. So we want that to be the biggest light source. We don't want the fill light to be a small light source, especially not a hard light source, because again, that's going to start to introduce shadows that aren't coming from the primary direction that our key light's coming from, making it, one, feel unnatural, and two, obvious that there's a secondary light source in the shot. So again, a fill light shouldn't be seen. It should be felt, I guess is a good way of describing it. It should help convey the message, be, again, dramatic or natural, but then it should just disappear and do its thing. So, and again, it should be larger than your key light, or if not larger, of equal size. You don't want it to be smaller. That being said, now that we've gone through what fill light is, we've talked about some things that you can do, some different options that you have for fill light. We're in a studio situation and we're going to show you how to do this. I'm probably gonna pull out another reflector now that I am awesome and snapped that one. So that's what we're gonna do. The first thing I think we're gonna do is show you, and granted, we're shooting relatively tight today with Kate, so we probably have the room to go in and out with the reflector. We won't be using the sun silver side of this reflector, I can tell you that much. So here we go. I meant to do the taco mode earlier, and I absolutely snapped that bad boy by just twisting this handle weird. Cool, so again, we'll use the white side of this reflector to kind of move it in and out to get that proximity up. You wanna come on in here, Kate? Sweet. We're going to be using as our key light today a 3-foot Octa silver. It's going through a D30. Which is quickly becoming one of my favorite lights to use, especially in studio. It's small, it's compact, it's easy to control, it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's a really beautiful light source. Let's see. Let's have you come this way some. Right. Maybe just, yeah, maybe just a hair too far, maybe that way. Right there, perfect. Okay, get you in the frame. So we're gonna take the first shot here with no fill at all. We're just gonna, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna make sure that that fill light over there is turned off so that we don't have any of that intruding into the shot. And we can see this right here. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Lovely. So it's a beautiful shot. The light's nice. I definitely stepped on my tether cable, so no, we're still framed up the way we want. So it's a lovely shot. Very, very contrasty. A really nice Rembrandt light. It's coming down, but it's definitely feeling pretty dramatic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my handy dandy Fuji app so I can control this from afar. Perfect. All right, let's get you back in there. Let me check the frame. Perfect. So, I'm gonna try to push this in as close as I can. I'm pretty sure this is gonna probably be in the frame, and so I'll have to, there we go. Let's see, are we in the frame? Just waiting for it to load. Oh no, it's not in the frame. So that did a really, really good job of raising that contrast, just with something as simple as a reflector. So you can go, oh, I did the thing where I'm not clicked on the right thing, and all sorts of stuff is popping up. So here we go. So here we have the shot with no fill at all. And then this is just a white reflector bringing that light back into it. Really, really simple. And we were able to keep it out of the frame. And then if you wanted to bring it back in, let's get you back in the frame. If you wanted less contrast, this is where you might start running into the issue of proximity of your reflector. So, you know, I want to try to get this closer. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Are we, see, make sure we're not mad. Take a tiny shift this way. Perfect. There we go. Just pulling. Let's get that in there. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. And so this is where we're going to start running into, obviously, my hands creeping in a little bit. I guess we're actually tight enough that we can get in even closer. So in a situation like this, let's take one more. I'm gonna go in even tighter and see if we can try to start getting this into more of a flat light, almost 1-to-1. 3, 2, 1. I have a feeling my hand creeped in there a little bit more. Yeah, so, but by doing this, we definitely didn't get to a 1-to-1, which is essentially the fill light and the main light are going to be the exact same, but we were able to drop that contrast down quite a bit and still have the directionality of the light. The upside for this is we're pretty tight on our actual crop itself, so getting rid of my hand isn't going to be that big of a factor. Once you start getting into more full body shots, wider images, this is where you're going to start running into some issues with your reflectors. So with that being said, when you go into something like a softbox, so this is a D30, or not a D30, this is a Pro D3, and we're using a 3x4 rectangle on this. So this softbox is bigger than, and I am going to show you, we're going to take the softbox off right here towards the end. And I'm going to show you what it's like whenever you start using a harder light source as your fill. In the past, we've done a geared up where we went on location and we talked about could you use a hard light source to get a natural looking shot? And we did a really good job, but it definitely had a shadow there for the nose. Granted, we tried lighting position and shadow mitigation to try to make it less obvious that there was a flash coming into the shot, and I think we did it pretty successfully. But when you're in a situation like this, you definitely don't want that to happen. So let's talk about how you can fine tune with the softbox, and then we're going to take that off so you can see why you don't use a hard light source. Everything good?
Yeah, I'm just going to switch to the side shot.
Cool.
This way.
She's a maverick at this stuff. Cool. So let's turn this thing back on. So let's take this all the way up to a flat light. I think this is roughly a power level of 6 on this light, if I'm not mistaken. We were kind of playing around and metering earlier. So a flat light is going to give you something like this. 3, 2, 1. So you're getting even light side to side, and it's filling in all of your shadow detail. It doesn't really look like much. There's not a lot of dimension. You know, the lights are coming from, they're coming from angles. They should give shape, but because the power is so even, what we're finding is that we're getting a real flat shot, perfect for a mug shot, or if you needed to, maybe if you're getting heavily into the passport photography business, this is a great setup for something like that. But if it's about controlling and adding shape and emotion to your shot, then there we can start to play with it. So there we're more of a 1-to-1, and we're going to step back one stop of light every shot, and to show you how you can get some dimension into your image, but also maintain detail in the shadows, because that's really one of the big advantages to having a nice fill light. So let's drop this down one stop. Ready? 3, 2, 1. One more stop. Yeah, just hang here. Yep. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. And then hold that for 1 second, and let's just turn it off completely. Although that last shot should have felt like it was off completely. All right, cool. So, hello everyone. So now we're going to kind of roll through these shots. I'm gonna make sure I'm over here because I usually mess this up. So we're gonna roll through these shots and show you how having that control over your fill light with a flash gives you much more ability to fine tune the emotion that you want in the image. So kind of going back here. So this was no fill flash at all. We had turned it completely off. This next shot probably doesn't change much, just barely. You can see if you, sorry, Kate, we are gonna go in a little close today. Kate was asking me earlier if we were gonna do any extreme close-ups. And I was like, maybe not, but I feel like right now we need to. So here is the no fill. And you can see it raises just a bit. Not too crazy, but it also, if you look here at the background, pay attention, oh, not there, don't look at the panels. If you pay attention right here to the background, watch it change subtly. Oh, come on, programs. Here it goes. A little darker, a little lighter. Mm-hmm. So that's simply from turning the light on, and that's it. The lowest power setting the D3 can go to, 0.1. 0.1, yes. And then so now we're gonna go up a stop from there. So this is one stop brighter. Here comes another stop brighter. And we're starting to get some more detail in those shadows, but still maintaining the shape that the light from the 3-foot Octa is giving us. And then we start to come up a little bit more, another stop up, that's 4. Again, we still have the shape, but it's definitely starting to lighten up. It's not feeling quite as dramatic. We get to 5, we still have some shape. So the background's starting to lighten up, everything's starting to even out there. We still have some shape from the main to the fill, and then we get back to that first shot that we took where we were, 6 stops up from where we started originally before we even turned the light off. And now we're to a totally flat shot, something that's, again, not very interesting. Again, perfect for your passport photography business, but a simple stop down from your passport look is going to start giving you something that feels a little bit more polished. So even going from, let's do this. Here with nothing, let's say 0.1, 1, 2, let's go to 3. You know what? Let's not go to 3. Let's go a little darker. Let's get rid of this one. Let's go to 2. Even from here with no fill flash at all to right here, just a couple of stops up, already feels way more polished. They both bring a lot of drama into the shot because drama is a byproduct of contrast. The higher the contrast, the more dramatic a photo generally feels. So this is still a very contrasty image, but it's a little more polished, it's a little more refined just by simply adding in a couple of stops of fill light. We're still down, a power level of 6 on the unit was kind of that 1-to-1 range, and here we're down, 3-4 stops of light. And we're getting some really lovely light that looks, again, more polished than something like this with one light, where we really start to lose a lot of this detail here in the shadow. So it's a really simple concept, but I think understanding what you should and shouldn't do with a fill, and again, we're going to take the softbox off here for one more image to show you that you shouldn't use your hard light as a fill light. But yeah, it really does something simple as adding your fill light in is going to give you so much more, again, polish to your images that when most of us first start, we're not even thinking about this stuff. We put a light somewhere, we're like, is it bright enough? Cool. That looks awesome. And then a lot of times, because of all those shadows and stuff like that, people get really afraid of kind of pulling the light off to the side and adding some shape to someone's face. So they come around and they're blasting with this big flat light, and it doesn't really look like much, but it feels safe because the light is totally covering the subject. So again, by controlling your fill light, you can bring that light back around, you can start adding some shape to it, but also still keep the refinement that the fill light's gonna add to it. So now let's talk about a shot that you shouldn't do, which is use a hard light source as your fill light. Let's take this 3x4 down. I'm not gonna look over at my My sad reflector that I snapped being an nincompoop. That's fine. It's neither here nor there. All right, Kate, you ready to rock?
Let's do it.
So I'm going to turn this all the way down to 0.1. I think that's plenty. This is a 1250 watt D3, so it's pretty powerful, but I think it'll do what we need it to do. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. So let's see, did that get into the shot? It might not have been bright enough to get into the shot, although I would think it would. I definitely see the catchlight in the eye, that super sharp point there. Let's bring it up a little bit. Let's bring it up 2 stops, see what happens. This might be too much. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. So it's definitely starting to raise the contrast. I'm trying to see if it's starting to introduce any unwanted shadows though, or where those shadows are. We're pretty, here, let's do this. I'm gonna turn the main off really fast, just so I can kind of see where I'm looking. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's not bright enough to actually do that. So here, let's do this. This is why we want. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. There we go. I'm gonna bring one more just for funsies, just so I can see it. 3, 2, 1. So what's gonna start happening here actually, as we're looking at this, so it's starting to flatten out a lot. This is a lot smoother over here from the softbox, and we're getting some more specularity over here. So we're already getting kind of, because it's starting to be more of a 1-to-1 light ratio, what we're starting to get is 2 different types of light on the subject at a 1-to-1 kind of pace, which is a little off. So again, you're getting here to her right side, so our left side, you're getting a little bit more of that specular highlight, whereas here you're getting more of a smooth, subtle highlight from the soft light. What would start happening at some point is almost naturally, you're going to want to start lowering this one, because again, it's not going to be making much sense, especially as this one keeps getting brighter. Shadows wise, under the nose, I think we're straight enough that it's not that big of a deal, but over here we have kind of like these subtle shadows from her mouth, and over here the shadows are getting a little bit sharper. So again, we're getting, and you can even tell here with the lip gloss, this is a great place to see it. You can look how specular that is versus how subtle and smooth that is. So and the catchlight's just odd. It's weird to have this and then this thing right there. So, but very, very different light sources, which starts to make the image, it's not terrible, but there's something just a little off about it. And then, yeah, so you can see this is what the fill looked like just before we started pulling it up. And that's kind of the difference as we brought it up. You can see it's just getting more specular. It's filling in the light the way that we want, but what it's doing is it's giving us 2 different shapes of light. So again, you generally don't want to fill with a hard modifier. You want to always try to keep it the same size, if not larger, is the ideal situation. But again, fill light, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to embrace. It's not as difficult as it seems. A lot of the times, you know, the right way of doing anything would be taking a meter out and kind of metering and getting your ratios right. But I feel like, especially in the world of digital, tethering back to your screens, you can really feel it out, especially when you're outdoors on location. You can kind of use that shutter speed to speed up or slow down your shutter speed, depending on how you want the look and feel of your camera to be. Again, generally, if you want an image to feel darker and dramatic, you're going to want that contrast to be higher. So you're going to want there to be less fill light. That means if you're outdoors on location, you're going to want to speed that shutter up to bring that ambient light down, and then bring your flash in to give you that. And then just the opposite, to get something that's more natural feeling, a little more light and airy, you're going to want to slow that shutter speed down and bring that ambient up. Same thing's going to be for your flash. So if you want it to be a little darker and dramatic, you're going to power down the light that's coming from your fill light. If you want it to feel a little more natural, or if you want to take passport shots, you're going to want to power that thing all the way back up to, that 1-to-1, to where the light is from this one is the exact same light from this one, and they're coming at the subject straight on, and it's super flat. Great for passports. But again, you just turn it down one stop, and you're already starting to really shape the light the way that you want to. It's not a super intense idea, but I feel like for people who are just getting into lighting, maybe you're a one light shooter, and you're just getting kind of into all this stuff, I think understanding fill light and how you can utilize it, be it in studio or on location, is really going to change the looks of the images that you create. So, yeah. I think that really brings home. Again, it's not anything too crazy. I'm going to jump back over here as I'm signing off to this bad boy. Just got to wait for Kate to put her headphones on and all that stuff. So again, not super complicated. Fill light is just there to help you control your contrast, whether it be to raise the contrast to make the shot a little more dramatic, or lower the contrast to make the shot feel a little bit more natural. A fill light should be felt, it shouldn't be seen. That's why, again, we want to try to maintain the size of our fill light being larger than our main. So using a hard light source like this right here as your fill light probably should stay away from that. And again, same size, if not larger if you can. Reflectors are really, really good. They're inexpensive. They hold up really well as long as you're not like me and twist the handle in a weird direction. But the downsides for them is it's proximity based. So you're going to have to move the reflector closer or further away to get more or less fill. And the problem with that is the reflector can start to creep into the composition of your shot if you need it to lower the contrast as much as possible. So if it's not too big of a deal, if you're shooting a relatively tight shot like we were today, you could probably easily kind of crop that out or Photoshop that out. If you're in an environmental scene, it might be a little bit more difficult. And that's where having something like a flash is going to give you a little bit more flexibility. You can keep it, further out of the scene and feather the power up and down depending on the look that you're going for. With that being said, I don't think we have any questions left or anything like that. So again, pretty simple. If you guys have any questions about anything in particular, anything lighting related, if you want to just talk about stuff, you can, I'm pretty sure Caitlin's probably throwing my handles up on the screen. You can hit me up at the Chris Fain. Instagram is probably the easiest place to get a hold of me. It's where I hang out the most. But if you have any questions, if you want to just talk about light, hit me up there and we will have some fun. In the meantime, I hope you have an awesome rest of your week. Peace out, everybody.